You're attacking something here that is conversationally, it looks, based on your reporting and collaboration you're doing with Mother Jones Magazine, that Riley Gaines, with your podcast, it's being shown how it is that she was used and how all of this was maneuvered politically. And so tell us, Pablo, what it is that you're reporting with Mother Jones here so people can get caught up on whatever it is you think you know about this. There's some fact-based reporting here that will show you that there's been what looks like a great deal of maneuvering and manipulation strictly for a very easy, profitable grift.
Yeah, there's a segue here somewhere between Tony's top 5 and Riley Gaines, the most famous 5th place finisher, I think, college sports history, but I am not here to talk about such jokes. The thing that this story is about, though, is the #1 politically impactful sports story in America. And it's Riley Gaines, who is this former University of Kentucky swimmer who has become, over time, someone who has become the face of what it means to win elections in America in 2025, just like hammering this issue, keep predators out of women's sports, predators meaning trans people, according to her, and the MAGA movement, as well as the face and the voice of people who've been victimized by such athletes. And so what we did with Mother Jones in collaboration with them and the Center for Investigative Reporting was actually profile Riley Gaines, who is this incredibly important person in politics and now in sports, having been a person who tied for 5th with Leah Thomas, the trans swimmer at the NCAA championships now 4 years ago. And the thing we were studying was like, when did this all escalate to the point where not only can you make money off of this, Dan, but you're actually somebody who has a leadership center named after her. You're actually somebody who's appearing dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of times on Fox News, is praised by name in person by President Trump at the White House as they're banning trans athletes and in the process declaring victory as they are the people who are arguing this is an 80-20 issue. The 20% of you woke libs are getting it wrong. We're winning this 80% of the time. And so when you go through this, you realize that this was a manufactured story, that Riley Gaines did not always believe this, that when you talk to her teammates, and we did, they tell you she wasn't anti-trans in college. She was not pro-Trump in college. She is somebody who over time got paid to develop an opinion into a weapon. And she got paid to develop her experience of tying for 5th place at the NCAA swimming championships into a professional victimhood that not only got exaggerated in terms of the rhetoric around it, but truly in terms of the implications for what it is to be a trans person. As in, it became, my colleagues, my friends, fellow female athletes were abused, preyed upon, victimized by these quote unquote men in sports. And there's a lot in that. But the things that I found all indicate, oh, wait a minute. There was a story of victimization in college involving Riley Gaines' teammates, but it wasn't the one that Leah Thomas had allegedly perpetrated. It was something deeper and darker that Riley Gaines has talked about literally once on Twitter while she makes these dozens of appearances all across the country talking about the real problem is over there. She doesn't want to talk about this specific thing, which is, I think, the big part of the story that we reported.
Pablo, just a person I wanted to speak with. Team A is
come on, you can't keep doing this.
You can't do this. Team A and Team B played a football game.
You can't do this every time, Mike, with this.
All right. So just based on the fact that Donald Trump credited Riley Gaines for his reelection, do you believe that if Riley Gaines beat Leah Thomas by a millisecond, that Donald Trump is reelected as president of the United States for a second time?
I had not phrased it in my head until Roy just put it that way. We may be living in a different America. That is how insanely important this issue and resonant this issue seems to be. And the whole thing, Roy, like why that's a good exercise here is not just because what a crazy sliding doors possibility. It's that there is now this entire population of people who claim to really care about women's sports. And their lens to see women's sports through is through the trans issue, right? These guys who otherwise could not, who actually actively insulted women's basketball over the years, the WNBA, women's sports in general, who are all making fun of it, are now rebranded as the foremost protectors of it because it is politically useful and because there is the easiest target in America, which is to say the most downtrodden, like attempting suicide at a rate of 1 in 3 kind of downtrodden population, which is the trans person in America. And so the trans athlete, the reason why there's this other story that I've been trying to tell people is because, and this is sort of spoiling the episode, so please go and listen to it in the way the chef intended. But the real thing you have to understand is that at the University of Kentucky, one of Riley Gaines' best friends, as she calls him in her book, somebody who she's called a really good coach over the years, someone she's been very close to, is the head coach of the UK women's swimming team, the former head coach now, a guy named Lars Jorgensen. And Coach Lars himself was accused of rape by multiple teammates on that same UK swim team that Riley Gaines comes from. And that premise of why do you not know the story of an actual male predator inside of the locker rooms that Riley Gaines and Donald Trump are trying to defend, right? The sanctity of, the safety of, the protection of these women. Why does no one know about that story? Why does Riley Gaines literally, except for one tweet, never even acknowledge that it happened? It speaks to the entire, not just like hypocrisy, but the mutant version of how the safety of women is being used against the interests of women. And it's not just like whataboutism. It's literally the question of we are always trying to figure out who gets to get the protection and the attention of Americans at a time when that is scarce and very competitive. And what Riley Gaines is telling you is look over at the time that I tied for 5th place at the NCAA swimming championships. That is like sexual assault. Remember when she went back and forth with Simone Biles, right? Simone Biles, actual victim of Larry Nassar, basically made those things equivalent. She herself has experienced this thing. And so I'll just quote one of Riley's teammates, and forgive me for going on about this, but because I just need to sort of put this in full context. What one of Riley Gaines' teammates told us, Trinity Ward, on tape with her own face, which is incredibly brave to do, is all the time she goes out and people ask her, because she tells them I swam for University of Kentucky, oh, do you know Riley Gaines? And she asks them in response, do you know about Lars Jorgensen? And what Trinity Ward said to us is, and this is me paraphrasing, it's really hard for me to care about Riley Gaines tying for 5th place when our head coach was accused of raping our teammates. And like, that is not abstract. That is the reality of the locker room that has become this social experiment for American politics to fight it out over. And somehow the biggest story about the predation of our actual young women in sports gets entirely ignored until you get a former teammate like this speaking out about it.
As I have mentioned a number of times now, Pablo Torre finds out it's very difficult work to do. It's a special collaboration with Mother Jones Magazine. It requires a great deal of vetting, a great deal of lawyering. All of this work is mostly work that other people are not willing to do. So I salute you for doing it. But when you think of the most important things that you're trying to do with this particular episode and the storytelling, I'm assuming from what it is that you're saying that the macro here that you're, for all of the revelations, what they are, the disgust that one must have at the idea of politics being used this way when you have to ask the largest question of who are we protecting here if you're going to allow a rapist to roam the locker room while allegedly, right? No, yes, thank you for that. But when in front of you, the most famous story involving Riley Gaines doesn't have anything to do with protecting women.
It's crazy, man. And there is like a dark comedy in this. Like the thing you think you should be paying attention to is over here. The actual crisis in women's sports, which any female athlete can tell you, which largely involves, by the way, men in positions of power. Like the irony, Dan, the sheer irony, right? And the reason I have to say alleged is because all of this, of course, is very carefully legally vetted. And I want to be very careful about all of this. But the question of what about men in female locker rooms in college? It's like they already exist. They're called the coaches. And they are Larry Nassar. They are allegedly Lars Jorgensen. They are the people who have the power, who are actually men. Like, we're not disagreeing that there are men who prey upon women, young women in sports. The question is, which ones, allegedly, should you care about? And so what's crazy also is that over time, like Riley Gaines has given so many interviews to various podcasts, conservative outlets, TV networks over time that you see the rhetoric, Dan. You see it evolve to be weaponized. It didn't start off as trans inclusion is the same as sexual assault, is the same as welcoming predators into female locker rooms. It didn't start off like that. But you see over time how they workshop, and we play the clips. Year to year, month to month, you see the rhetoric change to become more and more criminal and violent in the nature of its allegations. And it becomes something that many people, many parents, again, as the father of a daughter, right? I hear from people now in my mentions who are like, how dare you betray your blah, 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 blah. You're an embarrassed, blah, 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 whatever. The point is, if you care about girls and women in sports, there are issues to care about. It's just that we're being manipulated through money, by the way, that originates in a key form here. And you alluded to this before, Dan, and I've only gotten to this now, from the owners of the Orlando Magic. The DeVos family has put 6 figures behind Riley Gaines as this figure. Like, they're funding her work, her activism, which gets it all backwards. To the profit, again, I ask everybody to think of who profits from this? I would dare say that it's not actually the women and girls that Donald Trump has as these props as he's signing executive orders to ban trans athletes from women's sports.